All right. So part of this maintenance of health, so in Sanskrit, maintenance of health is called Svastha Vritta. Um, someone is unmuted. Hang on a second. There we go. Perfect. So maintenance of health is called Svastha Vritta. Remember, the aim and objective of Ayurveda is prevention and maintaining what is there. So whatever, you have to maintain your health because life is happening. And how do we do that? Mostly by following some, lifestyle interventions and behavior interventions and dietary interventions. Let me just write that down. And within this, we do dosha-specific diet plans. So diet for Vata person, Pitta person, or Kapha person. And within the lifestyle interventions that we'd give, there's again two things. There is daily routine and seasonal routine. Daily routine in Sanskrit is called dinacharya. Seasonal routine is called ritucharya, just a Sanskrit word, meaning that we need to maintain what time do you want to get up, what time do you want to have your breakfast, what time do you need to exercise. For example, for a Pitta person, early morning or evening is a better time to exercise. Exercising in the afternoon for a Pitta person or a Pitta disease would actually aggravate the Pitta. It's like if you have a Pitta woman and she's in menopause, and this is real, by the way, this actually happened with me. A Pitta woman, a textbook Pitta woman in menopause is having hot flashes, should not really going for that super hot yoga where the temperature is 107. That's going to aggravate it, right? So the time of exercise, what type of exercise, when do you exercise, what time do you eat? For example, lunch should be the biggest meal of the day. What time should a kapha have their breakfast? Kapha should have their breakfast really early morning or after 9:30. However, Vata should have their breakfast between 6 a.m. and 9:30. So it's different. That's an intervention from lifestyle. This is what you're going to be doing. So dosha specific diet plan. And the most important thing that we are doing today is we want to, in order to maintain good health, we want to remove the causative factors, whatever is causing the problem. Just to give you an example on the top of my head, a person is getting a lot of headaches, right? And it starts around the eyeball, it's ocular headaches. And, when you question them, you find out they watch a lot of TV or they are sitting in front of a computer for 10, 11, 12 hours a day. So what the hetu here is, you're sitting for too long in front of a computer. If you could remove that sitting for too long in front of a computer, then that problem solved, right? So removing the hetu is a word you will see us use again and again and again. So basically, this is what you would be doing as an Ayurveda counselor. You would also be giving some dietary supplements, Ayurvedic dietary supplements. Make sense? Do you want me to save this? So one of the things that we talk about today is causative factors. A part of this we've already covered it, it's going back to, things that we did in the beginning, the very first class. So you give dosha-specific diet for Vata, Pitta, Kapha, you check the Agni, in order to do the dosha specific diet plan, you need to know the prakriti vikriti. Lifestyle, you give a daily routine. If they've, if the season is changing, you give a seasonal routine, or you give, for example, you have Vata Pitta person. For summer, you'll give a different one, and winter, you'll give a different one. And you find out the hetus in the interview, and you basically try to remove it or manage them. If you have, for example, I had once a chiropractor that came to me. Now, he just couldn't understand what was happening. He was getting all these, his nose was congested. He used to have allergies, and he was just miserable. So I went to visit him in his office, and he used to sit right under an AC duct. Very, very Vata person. So he's sitting under and all the cold air is blowing on his nose, on his head. I'm like, just stop sitting here. That was it. We changed his seat and problem was solved. It was like, I can't believe it was as simple as that, because he didn't even think of that. You have a kapha woman. I had a kapha woman once. This is years and years ago. And she kept on having cough and cold, and she was spending all this money going to physicians, and nothing was helping. And I interviewed her, and apparently she drank a lot of water with ice in it, and she drank a lot of cold soda. And of course, there was other stuff going on, kapha increasing, and I gave her herbs. But we removed the cold ice and the soda, and her cough issues, and she had chronic cough for 3 years, was pretty much gone. She's like, nobody asked me they just want to give you pills, but nobody asked her, are you drinking iced water? You have a sensitive throat. You should be drinking hot water. So sometimes people don't even ask you. So that is finding the hetu and removing it. Now, making it very simple hetus, there can be, for example, you have a Vata person who tends to be constipated and has dry skin and dry hair. First question you want to ask them, do you eat salad? A lot of salad, because salad can be drying for a Vata person. Second thing you want to ask them, do you drink a lot of coffee? Now, coffee in a Vata person will cause a lot of dryness and constipation and dry skin, and they'll be a little spaced out. But I'm talking a lot of coffee. And in a Pitta person, it'll cause acidity and acid reflux. So there's a different thing it'll cause into. So it's one of the causative factors. So that's what we are discussing today. I've saved this. We have done, importance of definition of health. We're going to go straight into learn how to achieve and maintain a healthy state. You already know this. Samadosha sam agnishta samadhatu malakriha prasannatmendriya manah svastha itya vidhiyate. This is from Sutrasthanam Sushrut Samhita, and it's Sutra 15. This is the definition of health, which we did right in the class 1. So as an Ayurveda counselor, what you have to achieve for your client, yourself, and your community is balance their dosha, balance their agni, check their dhatus, and balance the waste that is coming out of that. That includes urine. Though urine we don't give a lot of stress upon in the counselor, that kind of changes when you move to practitioner. I do. I have a chart that I give to my clients, and they point out visually what their urine and stool looks like. We talk about sweat, we talk about sputum, but for counselor, you will talk a lot about poop, of stool. So once you check these 4, that's pretty much what we do as an Ayurveda counselor. Same thing. Prasannatma Indriya Mana, it's the same thing. It's again the same thing. We are still kind of talking about the definition of health here, which has been discussed in session 1. Now I want to talk about how do we maintain Svastha, health. Nityam hit ahara vihara sevi samikshya kari vishayesha vasatak data samasatya paraha kshamavan aptop sevi cha bhavet ya rogaha. Exactly what I told you in the beginning, that this is, so how I told you as an Ayurveda counselor, you're going to do dietary interventions and these interventions. That is exactly what this shloka is saying. This verse is saying that, depending on whether you're a Vata, Pitta, Kapha dominant person, you have to, whatever your prakriti is, that is the compatible diet that you have to follow. And then whatever your dosha is for Vata, Pitta, Kapha, follow dinacharya or daily routine. And whatever your dosha is, follow a specific seasonal routine. And yes, there is one thing that we have absolutely no control over, and that is the geographic constitution. If you're a Vata person, you live in a high altitude. High altitude has less oxygen, and Vata is going to be high for everybody. You eventually get used to it. In fact, athletes will go up and they will train in high altitudes up in the mountains because it increases their ability to use oxygen. But it's hard to do any athletic activity in high altitudes. So that is something we can't control. Or you live near Hawaii, I mean, where that's a different one. If you live in, Wisconsin or Canada, it's really cold, right? So in Canada, everybody's kapha is up just naturally. You live in a kapha place, you're surrounded by, let's say, lakes, and it's 6 months of the year, 7 months of the year, it's frozen. Kapha is going to be up for 6-7 months. It doesn't matter what your dosha is. So that is something that we cannot control. So you have a pitta person, they're going to be cold. If you're living in Alaska, if you're in, kapha place. So that also has to be considered. So we talked about hetus, right? We talked about causative factors. Here are some of Ayurvedic causative factors that can cause disease or something that we call pre-disease. What is this pre-disease that I'm talking about? It is part of Ayurvedic pathology. It's called pre-symptoms. Hetus. The first hetu here is not overusing or misusing the senses. Oops. Here we go. Not overusing or misusing the senses. What does that mean? We'll discuss in the details, meaning that if you, like I said, if you were, let's say, overusing or misusing would be if your nose is, if you're smelling rotten chemicals and, you're misusing it. If you were, if you're watching, let's say, horror movies, and if you're sitting in front of a computer all day, you're kind of overusing your eyes. So we're going to talk about it in one of the next slides. Performing activities and exercise according to one's ability and season. So we have to, whatever our bodily strength is, and the reason it's up there is, people want to go for a hard workout. They want to do CrossFit. They want to, I go to the gym. I started going to the gym January of this year. And I'm like, after between 30 and 45 minutes, I'm done, because that's my ability. I'm almost 45 years old. That's my ability. I haven't exercised in 4 years ever since I had my baby. So I'm building it up, right? It has to be built up. And obviously, if I have my period and, a body saying, oh boy, I'll just go for a walk outside. There's no way. You can't force yourself. So when people are doing exercise for 3 hours a day, or it's really hot outside, like in Texas, it gets, I don't know, I mean, it's in Austin. It's like, it was 90 yesterday. It's going to be 90s. And when people are, in the 90s, they take their shirt off. That's not so great, the UV rays. And then they're running on the sidewalk for 3, 4, 5 hours. And it's, so ability. And another thing, like, just to give you another example is, I don't know why it is like Dr. Aparna and I, we both have seen it, women who've had breast cancer, they decide as soon as they're done with the chemo that they want to go run a marathon. That is not suggested. They've had mastectomy or chemo after cancer, and don't go run a marathon immediately. Let your body, it can take 1 or 2 years for your body to recover. Do restorative yoga. And I don't know how many times I have lectured people on restorative yoga, because they think, oh, yoga is just, it's poo-poo, like Swedish massage. But it's not there. Yeah, restorative yoga is not to build, we are not trying to burn calories. Restorative yoga is for your mind. So I wish people who teach yoga would, you know, market it as a mind and stress instead of as, people's expectations, and also for elderly people and so on. So this is one of the things that can cause a disease. If a Vata person is, running around for 3 hours and uh, kind of overdoing it, or a Pitta person exercising in heat season, right? Not overstimulating the sense organs and the ability to discriminate between what is harmony. I don't know who wrote this. Let me understand. I haven't done a introductory lecture in like a few years. I teach. Yeah, these can be, yes, Deborah. These can be some causative factors, and we're going to go through these in detail. Yes. This basically, the third one simply means that be in harmony with the nature. That's it. Be in harmony with your senses. Just don't overdo things. Yes. Here. So not believing in excessive consumption, and excessive consumption of what? Excessive consumption meaning not too much alcohol, not too much food, not too much. Don't overdo it, basically, especially internally. Whatever you're putting in your body, don't overdo it. And also mentally, our ability to be attached to material things and always think, I am this body and I want that car. I want the bigger house. I want this. I want to fit into this dress because I'm this body. So the more we get attached to the idea of I'm not the spirit, I'm the body, that can, when you're so situated that, like, for example, people who are racist, for instance, sorry, I didn't want to bring race into it, but really they think that they're superior and they're white, but they're not even this body. You're not this body. When we get overly attached to the concept of, hey, I'm this body and I'm rich and I belong here and this is mine, that leads to disease. That's a causative factor. When someone doesn't do any charity, zero charity is part of dharma of life. That can cause, and that doesn't mean just being, it doesn't necessarily mean just volunteering in your church or something. It just be basically, helping your neighbor out, being a helpful person, being truthful. Someone who lies and is immoral, it will lead to disease. Yes, Ayurveda believes that. Someone who's unforgiving and holding on to grudges, yes, over a period of time, it'll lead to disease. And one who doesn't listen, and this here means, following scriptures, whether it's Bible or, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, meaning following the advice of wise persons, and when you do, it can lead to disease. Do you understand? This is a completely different ball game than, this happened to me because I was exposed to environmental toxin. Yes, that can also be a causative factor, but these are very unique, very Ayurvedic causative factors. Make sense? Any questions? Any questions? Okay. I think already this was done. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, Anam, Arogya, Moolam, Uttamam. Basically, we have to follow our life's dharma. We have to make money, but it should be made in properly, not illegally. We must have enjoyment and lust and, even sex, but, in not overdoing it. That is part of the being in moksha. We want to do spiritual activities, ignore the Indian English. It just means that, doing the process of yoga, and the aim and objective of yoga is yuja, means to be situated in the universe, in the divine. That's what it means. So from Ayurvedic perspective, how do you maintain balance? You maintain balance in the body, like I said, with the dosha, diet, and so on. But the most important hetu is Ayurveda wants you to balance not just your physical body, but it also wants you to balance your mind. In order to balance the mind, you need to balance the sense organs. Why? Because the sense organs are the gateway to buddhi, to mind. So I'm going to take just a 1-minute break. I'm really thirsty. I'm going to get myself some water and tea. And give me 1 second. So when we talk about senses, senses are the gateway to the mind. And when your senses are controlled, your mind is controlled. So there are few types of senses in Ayurveda. Karma is to work. Karma indriyas. Karma indriya means senses. Let me write that down. You know what karma is? An indriya. It is not actually not karma, it's karma. Karma indriya. So there's things that help you do your karma. That includes your speech, vaka, your hands, pani, legs, pada, anus, payu, urogenital tract, upastha, and mind is ubhaya, indriya, which is the top indriya. Let me save this for you guys. Okay. So this is a very important hetu. Let's get this. Okay. So you have your sense organ. Then you have the Indriya Artha predominant Mahabhuta, Ati Yoga, Ayoga. What does this mean? So the idea is that one of the most important reason for disease, before disease can begin, there is an imbalance that starts in the body. And the imbalance that starts in the body is by our use, overuse, or underuse, overuse, or misuse. Ati yoga, ayoga. Underuse is ayoga. Excessive use is ati yoga. And misuse, and both of those, all three of those would lead to, eventually lead to some symptoms of imbalance and then lead to a disease later. Imbalance becomes disease later. Make sense? Okay. Let's look at eyes. What are eyes giving? Eyes are giving a sight. Eye is also the region where Alochaka Pitta resides. Pitta resides here. And that's why the predominant element or Mahabhuta is fire, because that's why Pitta resides here. And this is just one of the examples of what can become a hetu or a causative factor for, like I mentioned, ocular headaches. Headache is that is happening, or pitta going out of balance. So exposure to bright, sharp light includes looking at TV, being in sun all day, looking at a computer all day, looking at a cell phone all day, right? Sitting in a cinema all day, not going out in the sunlight at all. So if little kittens, when they are born, they're blind, they can't see. So if the little kittens do not get exposure to sun, they will remain blind. So sitting in dim light all day, you have to go out in the sun. At the same time, you can't be in sun all day. Is it making sense? So when someone has red eyes or gets ocular headaches, or one of the things that we want to ask our clients, because they're coming to us for some kind of imbalance, you want to ask them these questions to determine what the causative factor is. Ear. Also, one thing I have to tell you, this, which I haven't mentioned, if your eyes see something that is like watching horror films, or if your eyes are seeing, if you watch something horrifying, maybe, let's like the Parkland, the Florida Parkland kids watch something really with the eyes, and they experience it with all their senses. This can lead to a lot of problems, imbalances. So even watching horror films, or, films with a lot of violence, that would be considered a misuse of the eyes. Does it make sense? So this was decreased, not using it enough, using it too much, or misuse. So I'm not saying stop watching horror films, just don't watch it all the time. Or if you're watching a murder mystery, when the murder happens, just close your eyes. You know how does it make sense? That would be misuse. You're seeing, these things they're going to affect your mind and body for a long time to come. Another example is, there are children who have seen their parents, maybe they've seen their parents fighting with each other, right? That will affect, just to see. Same thing will, apply to what you hear. Ear is related to sound or shabda. The predominant mahabhuta or element for that is air, space. Think about it. Sound travels in waves. Sound can travel in water. Sound can travel in a hollow space. If there is no space, sound cannot travel. I mean, think of how the shape of our ear. If you're listening to loud sounds all day, and this is one thing, or even, Dr. Aparna loves to give this example. They see that people with, who drive, truck drivers who are driving all day, and they have the window open. So, when you're driving, one of your side of your face is towards the window. They have the window open, and they're exposed to, wind, and they're exposed to those large sounds, end up getting either going deaf in that ear and even getting cancer. And it's a statistical fact. It's overexposure to the highway sounds and the wind in that ear. So many of them, many truck drivers who are driving all day end up getting deaf in that ear. Or another example that I've seen is, sometimes I've worked with people who are musicians or work with the stage. So they are exposed to these, high sounds because they work with musicians and stage and whatnot in the back, whatever they're called. And they end up having issues with sound. This becomes, so their job itself becomes the reason for, issues. Another thing is, not if someone stops, they cover the ears, they stop listening to anything. That is also a problem. And again, what would the misuse be? Listening to, just like here, that you say here, no, listening to violence, horror, listening to these violent things and horrifying things, or even, listening words of hatred. We don't want to hear that. I mean, another, I used to be quite a news junkie, and a lot of news is so bad, it just affects your mind. I just said, I want to and I want to read something nice. So I make a point of trying to read, a happy news article. If not every day, for other day, you want to read something which is feel good. But, if you're reading news, if you're watching horror films, violent acts, you're listening to words of hatred, this is going to lead to disease eventually. We don't want that. And it's like I said, this is something that is not even in the ballpark of Western medicine. This is 100% unique to Ayurveda. For nose, smell or gandha, it's related to earth element. This is, if someone is, if you have smelled Let me give you one example. So I had a client and she got some congestion, and then she went and used one of those sprays that you put in your nose, and it had a strong smell, and she lost her ability to smell completely. So I would say exposure to, this would mean using perfumes, chemicals, smelling chemicals. So people who work with chemicals. Another example is, I remember I had a hairdresser once who was my client. And this is like a long time ago, and she used to do a perm. Nobody gets a perm anymore, do they? But those use very strong chemicals. And um, her earth element was out of balance. She's kapha person. Her earth element was she was unbalanced. She did not know what was wrong with her. I said, you need to stop doing this. So she was still cutting hair. She just stopped doing the perm, and immediately within 2 weeks, she saw a difference. People who use very, very strong perfumes, it is better to use essential oils that are good for your dosha. And not having any kind of smell at all will lead to non-tolerance to, some people have that, but idea is you should be using some kind of perfumes like essential oils. It can be nothing. And the misuse would be snorting, things that I won't name. They're misusing their sense of smell by snorting drugs in it. You know what I mean? So that was a misuse that will cause disease. Tongue is related to water element or kapha. So if you have too spicy, too sweet, too sour, too pungent, it will lead to imbalancing not just doshas, but also agni, digestive. And if someone is only eating sweet taste, so this is to do with the 6 rasas that are part of food chain, which is you have the sweet, sour, salty, astringent, bitter, and pungent. There are 6 rasas or 6 tastes in Ayurveda. When you are not eating, you're supposed to eat a little bit of everything, but make the rasa, the taste that is part of your dosha dominant. For example, if you have a pitta person, astringent and bitter and sweet are the dominant rasas. So astringent would be things like beans, and bitter would be things like dark green leafy vegetables, bitter gourd, and pungent and sweet would be things like carrots and mangoes and watermelon. This should be the dominant part of the diet. Everything else is also needed. So you can't just say that I'm only going to eat what's good for my dosha. You have to have all 6 rasas. So if you overeat, that would be overeating for undereating, eating incompatible. So overeating something, undereating something, eating food that is incompatible to your dosha will lead to disease of agni, lead to disease of dosha, and eventually it'll be the causative factor. And let me tell you, for anyone who is addicted, like, people have food addictions, there's something to do with the imbalance of the tongue, imbalance of not being able to control what they put in their mouth. And skin is related to touch, sparsha. It is related to the Mahabhuta, air. When you are exposing your skin to very, very extreme temperatures, that will imbalance the vata in the person. You are not exposing to any cold or any heat, that will also lead to it. When you're putting chemicals on your skin, people get, for women, very simple, using chemical-based makeup and creams, which is not natural. I mean, in Ayurvedic massage, we won't even use chemical-based makeup. You have lipsticks that are made up of bugs. That red color comes from bugs. You have creams that have all these. So trying to use organic. I know organic makeup is so hard. Even they started selling kajal in CVS and Walgreens and whatnot. It's not kajal. I'll teach you how to make kajal. Kajal is literally burnt ghee. Kajal is the eyeliner that is burnt ghee, literally. You can get a good kajal from an Indian store which is made of ghee. You can, when I was in my 20s, I used to make my own base for the foundation with turmeric powder and some corn flour and some natural red color, because basically all makeup is a mixture of red and yellow and white. That's what it is. I was into all of that stuff when I was in my 20s. But yeah, I didn't want to use all that nonsense. And then, so using, for women, it's chemical-based makeups, creams. Another example I'll give you, I had a guy, he was a South American gentleman, and he had a rash on his face that wouldn't go away. And he had been to a dermatologist. He had tried their stuff that they had given him, and it would go away, but then it would come back. And he walked in, and he was very smartly dressed, and I could smell, some very expensive perfume on him, like one of those, Calvin Klein kind of stuff, but I don't know what it was. And so the first question, he sat down, and he had come to me for a skin issue. It was very red. I said, "What shaving cream do you use?" And he used some stuff from, Saks Fifth Avenue, some fancy schmancy shaving cream with a lot of perfume in it. And I can smell it. I said, let's Google it. So we Googled it. It had a lot of stuff in it. I said, "You're allergic to that thing." And we found, and then he and I did some research and found some organic shaving creams. And so by using that shaving cream, he was actually causing the problem. Remember, what is our aim and objective? Our aim and objective, let me give you an example here. Is to remove the causative factor. Once I determined that was a causative factor, I said, okay, get this other shaving cream. He ordered from Amazon, and then he reported back in 2 weeks, no problem. The organic shaving cream works. That's what was causing it. I mean, I did a lot of questioning. What time do you have it? He said, when you don't shave, do you still have it? And so on. Plus, I gave him some Ayurvedic herbs also. But this is just to give you an example of how the sense organs are used in the questioning when you're questioning your clients. You want me to save this? Shall I save this page? Okay, I shall. Done. Now I'll clear it. So what I want you to do is, let's see how many people are here. Debbie, Evelyn, Lauren, Maria, Nicole, Rabia, Satya, everybody but Rebecca. Great. Can you think of one misuse of any of these and put it in the chat window? Eyes, ear, nose, tongue, or skin. Anything. Any misuse that might lead to an imbalance. Choose one sense organ, either eyes or ear and nose or tongue or skin. You can even use one of the things that I told you just now. I just want to make sure that this is sunk in, because this is a different concept from the West. Okay. Skin non-organic makeup. And Lauren, trust me, when you start telling your clients to use organic makeup, they're like, that's so expensive. And it is, but it's worth it, I think. And nowadays, organic makeup is getting, it's cheaper, but like I use one brand, it's like $36 for a lipstick, but it's so totally worth it. Yeah. Oh, okay, Debbie, thank you. I have never been to a tanning salon. I'm so dark. don't need to. But yeah, is that something that happens in tanning salons? Thank you. I learned something today. Yes. So overuse of eyes and computer. And so one of the things you can tell someone who's sitting in a computer all day is that every 90 minutes, take a break and they close their eyes. They can even keep some like rose water, organic rose water. Um, and they can put some, spray some rose water in their eyes. They can keep their eyes closed. They can, or they can put some rose water um, on a piece of cotton and, pad their eyes. Do it every 90 minutes or so. Yes. So eyes is easy because what about anyone for eyes, mobile phone? What about even keeping mobile phones, listening to mobile phones on the ears? Music festival, okay. Skin, all right. Thank you. So it has, you have understood. Yeah, so these are the things you definitely want to focus on when you ask people questions about this. You have to say this. This is an issue of. So with the skin, air element or vata is related with the tongue, kapha element, nose, kapha element, ear, vata element. So usually vatas will have ringing in the ears, eyes, pitta. Pitta person, it'll be seen more. Yes, the nail salons. Oh my God, I can't even go to a nail salon anymore. I get this nail polish. I mean, I don't even actually wear it. I have it sometimes, and it only lasts one day because basically it has barely any chemicals in it. But you know what? I should probably make a video of making a kajal or a lipstick with ghee. It's so easy with turmeric powder and beet powder and the ghee. And the only thing is you can't wear it and a little bit of corn flour. Yeah, I mean, this is fun stuff, right? Yes, I've heard, Maria, there's these salons that are organic, but I haven't seen one in Austin, but I know there are in San Diego. Yes. Yes, because I knew people who would go there, but I haven't been to one. And they actually are, a lot of nail salons are actually now carrying um, organic nail polishes. And remember, people who work with nails and hair have a high, statistically high, they may get, cancer. And it's related to the exposure to those elements. Is it? Oh, next time I'm in Dallas, I totally want to go there. But yeah, but because I do so much massage, and I use the oil goes, if I'm wearing a nail polish, I use massage, it completely disappears. The oil will get rid of it. There's no point. Yeah, and my nails are always super short because I do massage. Plus I do nadi. If you want to practice nadi, meaning take somebody's pulse, your nails have to be super short. So I haven't had long nails in like 15 years now, which is also good. All right. This is just functions of karmendriya: hands, grasping, holding, procuring; genitals, having enjoyment, basically reproduction, sex, but also not overindulging in sex. Sex is important and you should, because it's part of the whole process, but overindulging will lead to low immunity. Doesn't make sense. And if you say, why does it lead to low immunity? Then it's a long explanation, which is part of your counselor course. So we will talk about it in AC105 or Ayurvedic anatomy. Why is, overindulging in sex leads to immunity disorders? But not indulging at all also leads to disorders. So it should be within, it should be a healthy, it should not be crazy. Same excretion of waste products. If someone's using laxatives or diuretics, they're misusing their excretory organs. This I'm just going to leave. We already talked about this. We keep on talking about as we move on. We did do Vata. Dr. Aparna, I think she did Vata last time. She talked about basically diets that imbalance Vata activities, right? But here's something new. Some of the things that are very common to Vata persons, and I mean, textbook is bloating, atop. There's this little sound that comes from the abdomen gurgles, they're called. You hear it yourself. And constipation, very, very common to a Vata person. So let's say, let me throw this out to you. You have a person who walks in and they have a form that they have filled out, and their chief complaints, I get gas, bloating, and constipation. And they have dry hair, dry skin. Look at the diet and activities. Tell me what questions you might ask them. Remember, we have to remove causative factors. So what questions will you ask them from the diet and activity section? Look at it so that you may remove it. Because if they have bloating, abdominal gurgle, constipation, and they're a Vata person, it's one of the things they're doing from here, or a combination that is leading to bloating and constipation and gas and flatulence. Think you're going to be doing it. And what are the questions that you're asking them? So Debbie, what I want you to look at is the question here. What do you eat? Do you eat a lot of beans? Pungent? Do you eat a lot of spicy? Do you eat a lot of salads? Yes. Do you do a lot of what? Iced drinks? Do you do soda? Do you do coffee? Right? Do you do popcorn? Popcorn is dry. Do you stay hungry a lot? Does it make sense what I'm trying to do here? Yes. What is the temperature of your food? It should be warm and cooked and soft. It should not be rough and hard like a popcorn. So if a Vata person should have popcorn, it should be with ghee. And the minute a person walks in and you ask them, how have you been? Tell us something about yourself. I remember I had a Kapha woman once. She walked in. She had a 90-minute appointment with me. She ended up becoming a good friend eventually. And she had just been divorced and she had lost everything. And, it has been like the worst year of her life. So she walked in and talked for 20 minutes before I could get a word in. I mean, I actually had to say, well, you could talk the whole time and we would be out of time. So I do need to ask you these questions. So then she allowed me to talk, but then she would interrupt me every 3 seconds. And this is a very textbook Kapha looking woman. I knew her. So before she could even, tell me what's going on, and because she was going all over the place, she was telling me 25 things at once. I knew her Udanavayu, her Vata was out of balance because of the talking, and her mind was going everywhere. And so I said, okay, I need to listen to her because she is so disturbed. So hearing abnormal, sharp, and loud sounds, Ratri Jagran. So being awake in the night doesn't mean you're awake all night. I mean, once the sun has set, so let's say the sun sets at 7 p.m. and you're going to bed at 11. So between 7 and 11, you are awake at night. So a Vata should go to bed closer to sunset. Does that make sense? Yes, Maria. Processed food would balance every dosha. Absolutely. So one of the things that Atul's going to do with you when I'm done, he's going to talk about Pitta dosha. Same thing. Let's look at the digestive condition. A Pitta may walk in. Remember, when you get a Pitta client, they are naturally filled with fire. They might snap at you. Or they might tell you, I'm not going to do that. I just had a Pitta client recently. It's a Russian lady. Very typical Pitta Vata combination. I told her a few things. She's like, well, you're wasting your time. I'm not going to do that anyway. I'm like, okay. So tell me what you are going to do. She said, well, I can do because I'd given her a list of things. And I could do A, B, and C, but after D, I can't do it. So I said, well, let's go with A, B, and C, and let's see what you can do. So, you can't tell them. You have to kind of, whereas Vatas they make the best clients. They will listen and they will follow for a little while, but they won't follow. But Pittas will follow to the T. They'll have a lot of questions. Kaphas won't even listen. Kaphas are not going to listen to you. They're like, or they'll say okay and they won't follow anything. So you have to give a kapha person, all right, let's start with what you love. You do not want to give up your soda? Why don't I say you can have soda 2 days a week? How's that? And maybe Sunday lunch can be your cheat. Go have your kapha lunch on Sunday. That's great. Now that you have them in, now you can start giving them nice things. Because, when you're giving counseling to someone, it is not just about if they don't go and follow what you've said, basically they've wasted their money and you've wasted your time. You have to motivate them and give them baby steps. So Pitta person, they're very particular. They're type A personalities. They're not going to listen. Just to give you another example, I had a Pitta woman who had high blood pressure, and she had ate a lot of spicy food, a lot of citrus fruits, not salty, and she did not do so much hot beverages, but she did a lot of alcohol. She did a lot of beef. Now she gave up the spicy food. She said that's no problem at all. But she said, I'm going to have it on Saturday night when I go meet my friends. I said, absolutely. And then she gave up beef Monday through Friday. And Saturday, Sunday, she would have it. And just doing that and all the things I said, she said, I'm going to do it Monday to Friday. So she was very honest with me about these things. So I worked around. I said, okay, if you're going to eat things that imbalance Pitta, can you eat them in the morning or the evening, but not in the afternoon, because that was a hot weather. And so we kind of worked around what is she that she would going to do. So let's have realistic expectations. People are not going to follow. I mean, honestly, the diet that I want to give everybody is a vegetarian diet. I do not want anybody eating any kind of meat products, because it doesn't matter, will lead to disease. Every single meat product will lead to disease eventually. Even milk, especially if it's not organic. So ideally, I want to give a vegetarian diet without milk too. And I want to give like a vegan diet to all my kaphas, but they're not going to follow that. So you have to work with what they are going to follow. So that's what we worked with. And honestly, when I started practicing, I wouldn't even want to talk about meat, because I'm so, I'm such a, we are completely, we are vegetarian, and we believe in being vegetarian, and we know that animal-based foods cause so many imbalances, but we work around. So what I do with pittas is I have them do mostly avoid all kind of animal and do like fish instead, because at least that's better than meat. And most of them are like open to it. Then like I said, the lady who had issues with pitta, when she started doing Monday to Friday vegetarian and only eating her doing her alcohol and spicy and meat only on weekends, 80% of her problems improved. All of them were textbook pitta problems, every single, which included, if you look at some textbook pitta imbalances, it would be acid reflux, indigestion, ulcers, heartburn, sour belching. For women, it would be very heavy duty periods, periods that happen every 22 days and very heavy duty PMS, and sharp pain, inflammation, and so on, losing hair. So these are the things. And things like excessive heat. Let me give you one example. I had one lady, this was years ago. So in California, there's a place called Palm Desert, very, very hot place. She lived in that hot place where the average temperature is 110 degrees. And she went to hot yoga. We're talking, Bikram yoga, hot yoga. And hot yoga for Vata person, is really good. For me, it's really good. I'm Kapha. Not for a text. And she was 52 and she was getting hot flashes. So when I told her to reduce or give up, she chewed my ear off, and she told me I was BS and I did not know what I was talking about. And she yelled at me and then she never came back. That is that would be an imbalanced pitta. But I kind of gave her some pitta balancing herbs anyway. I said maybe her mind would calm down, and that is a total possibility. And I have learned not to let pittas, dictate anything to them. You kind of just suggest. There's a question from Debbie. What about this meat replacement food items? Oh, that's interesting. I've been doing that. I had to do some research on that, so I had to buy some, and I found one replacement item that we have another student in another group who started in January, and she has moved to a more vegetarian, she's a pitta person, she's moved to a more pescatarian diet with lots of vegetables, and she was complaining about her husband. She has to cook meat for him every day. So, she didn't even tell her husband, and she started substituting with some vegetarian stuff, and he didn't even notice. And so we've been having a laugh. He still doesn't know. But you have to find the right one, because sometimes those vegetarian meat products are very excessively processed. So we found one brand. One is Field Roast and another is Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat is absolutely phenomenal. They're using non-GMO pea protein. There's no soy at all. It's fantastic. It's available in the refrigerated section of Whole Foods. Yeah, so it was quite good. So just to reduce that, because things like there's so much research and study based on that red meat, especially beef and pork, can cause cancer of the colon, and there's so many health diseases associated with it. And there's studies that say. Just to give you one more example, I had a kapha pitta. I had a student. Her husband worked in a steakhouse, and he started bleeding from his rectum, and he has given me his permission to talk about him, and he gained a lot of weight. So he's bleeding from his rectum, and he's gained a lot of weight. And so they come to me, and I said, what do you eat? He had a steak. This is a kapha pitta person. Every single day, because it was free, because he worked in a steakhouse. And I said, do you know how much testosterone you're getting in? Because he said, well, I also got a testosterone shot to increase libido, and I had no energy. I said, there you go. So between that and eating every day, Monday through Saturday, except for one day, I say, you got to stop eating it. He says, it's free. I said, I don't care. You want to get well, you got to stop eating that stuff. So what we did, this was in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, we did a Google search around his restaurant where he worked, where he was a manager. And we found a vegetarian, like Ethiopian vegetarian place, and a natural food store that sold some like veggie wraps and stuff. I told him, give me 3 months. So I gave him herbs, and not 3 months. I told him, give me 1 month actually. And his wife, who used to be my student, who was doing practitioner, she was going to keep a journal for me, because she says, he doesn't listen to me. If you tell him, he's going to listen to you. So here we go. So 1 month later, she calls, the bleeding had stopped, his skin, he had lost 10 pounds, and he was only eating from that Ethiopian place or that vegetarian place. Plus he was eating more food, and he was taking lunch food to his restaurant. Everything's fine. And then, of course, she graduated. I didn't hear from her. She had graduated. Then a year later, I met her in one of the, health food stores in LA. And there was a man with him, like, hi, who's this? She's like, he's my husband. You met him. He had lost 50 pounds, and he'd become vegan. I mean, she was vegan for 20 years. He'd become vegan. He left the job. He started another job. He had more energy. I'm like, what? I told you to do it for 1 month. He lost 50 pounds, all his issues gone. And he became an advocate for vegetarian food. And I didn't do nothing. I just told him 1 month. And he said, he was like, I couldn't even recognize him. It was quite amazing. Excessive intake of sweet, sour. I mean, basically whatever imbalances. Remember the theory of similar and similar? Similar and dissimilar, you have to do the dissimilar. One thing, kaphas will just put food in their mouth, and I'm a kapha and I have to control myself. and we chew very fast, and we will eat because it's time. Too much carbs. Having said that, brown rice is actually in a small amount, and even is actually good for mandagani, but very small amount. Wheat and meat and dairy is so bad for kapha. Oh my God. It doesn't mean they should never have it. It should just, they should avoid it. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to lose all that weight, but their kapha is going to be balanced. Exposure to cold wind, lack of exercise, and sleeping in daytime doesn't mean you're taking a nap. It's the same principle. If the sun, the time of the rising sun was, let's say, 5:30 a.m. today, right? And you woke up at 7 p.m. So between 5:30 to 7, you were sleeping in daytime. So 1.5 hours. So kaphas should wake up early, but I'm a kapha, let me tell you, we hate mornings. I mean, I do get up, but and pittas will just get up in the, like Atul's up at 4 a.m. I don't know how does it. And some of the things that kaphas will have, because they're eating too much, they have a natural sluggish digestion. So they have to eat less, and they have to kind of wait for their food to get digested. So what was the conclusion? The Ayurvedic concept of health emphasizes integrity of body, mind, soul. Basically what we talked about, health is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, social, spiritual well-being. So when you talked about the sense organs or excessive use of sense organs, or even not watching horror movies, like I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. I mean, I think it's just ridiculous. I think the country is going to dogs. I mean, I really dislike him, but I don't hate him, and I don't want to hear. I am just sick and tired of hearing hate, 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 hate wherever you go, and it's. I don't want to know, because it's just. Do you know what I'm talking about? We by doing it, we are cultivating. Even if someone is despicable, you don't want to cultivate hatred in your heart, because it leads to disease. We don't want to be there. Does it make sense? And right now, I believe, America as a whole in a state of, the division and hatred. Do we really want to be like that? And being in this country, when I first came to San Diego, and, I'm Indian, and I'm kapha, my very first week I had someone thought I was Mexican, and they were pretty racist towards me, actually. And that's, the racism has happened since. And then, of course, I was very hurt. It had never happened to me before. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I can either let this, it made me stronger. Made me, look at people like, oh my God, I want to do this. I want to educate people. Does it make sense? And this is going to start with you as counselors, or whatever you guys do. And yeah, this is the country we live in. This is the environment we live in. And one thing that I did not mention as a causative factor of disease, and this is something that I've seen in the last few years, it's not in the, so I've had a few people who spend so much time on social media that makes them sick. I don't know, it's excessive use of social media. I had one client who was so sick, and so basically she lost her job. And she was like, I said, what do you do when you get up in the morning? She's like, I do Facebook. Okay. And then what are you doing all day? And her boyfriend's telling me, well, she's on Twitter all day, and she's seeing what's trending. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does trending mean? So I had to look it up, what trending means, because I don't know this stuff. This is a few years ago. Of course, I had to ask my 12-year-old what that means. So I said, well, you have to, so I wrote it on a piece of paper. In order to get well, for the next 1 week, we're going to take away your Facebook and Twitter or whatever. We took away her computer. We took away her phone. She doesn't have a job, remember? And we sent her to yoga classes. We sent her for massages. We sent her for a walk. And yeah, she went back to her social, but she wasn't doing it early morning. So excessive use of social media is another one, which I didn't mention, but it's in today's... I had someone call me and they said, I posted this and they didn't like me and they disliked me, and then they, what? What? Who cares whether someone disliked you or liked you? It doesn't matter. This, just like we are not this body, we are not our Facebook or Twitter accounts. That doesn't represent us. So that is a new one. That is, I am kind of, I don't know because I don't use it. I, except for Instagram. I mean, I barely use Facebook, so I don't know. But from, yeah, people spend too much time on that, and that it could be a reason for imbalance. Is there any question? This is my last slide. Is there any question? Yeah, I mean, social media. I know that teenagers don't do that anymore. Teenagers are doing other stuff. I don't even know what that stuff is. Um, I mean, I have a 12-year-old. He likes to do music, and we spend a lot of money so he can get music lessons so he wouldn't be on, you know, video games or whatever that is. And I try to keep an eye on that. But yeah, the whole social media, and this is new thing for me because I I do ask how much time you spend on a computer and social media, and that there's definitely a correlation, not just with that, but also with digestion. And what happens when you're spending so much time in front of a screen, or you, why, how many people have liked or viewed my post? Who cares? You know, it's just, we did not even grow up with that. So it's, yeah, it's an, it'll, first thing it'll imbalance is vata. Because when you're doing things that, so the idea is if you do not have a daily routine, for example, a daily routine, how, you know how children have routines? Now it's wake up time, play time, brush time, bedtime, bath time. And if you change a child's routine, they get imbalanced. Similarly, you know, when we grow up, a lot of us have routines. We get up in the morning. We, you know, some people go for a run, a walk. They get ready. They have breakfast. They go to work. They, you know, drop their kids off to school. They come back. They do something. They go for a yoga class or whatever. So that routine helps you be balanced. If you do not have a routine, it'll lead to imbalance. So routine, having a routine leads to balance. I don't know why my caps lock is on today. So we need to have a routine. And if so, one of the ways that Vata is going to get imbalanced, or even Pitta or Kapha, but Kaphas love routine. Kaphas like a routine, you know, they are kind of routine bound. But Vatas don't like routine so much. So one of the things, I have my lunch at 12 on Monday and 3 p.m. next day. I go for my yoga class Monday morning and Saturday night. That's not a routine. Oh, that's fantastic. Yes, that is fantastic because there's nothing like nature. And one of the things that, you know, we tell people when they have a lot of stress is that you definitely want to be near nature and do your pranayam in the morning. You know, when in the morning, when the sun, when the trees have been, the plants have been giving out oxygen. So sit near, as long as you don't have allergies, sit near a garden or in a garden, and or at least have your window open and do your pranayam, which is your breathing exercises in the morning. That's the best time to do it. Yeah. Yeah, I for me, when people say, "Do you meditate?" Of course, I meditate. I meditate, you know, many times during the day. But my biggest meditation is my gardening. Oh my God, getting in there, wearing my gloves, and you know, getting those weeds out. And I go look at my plants. I go, you know, talk to my herbs, and that is my, you know, my God. If I didn't have my garden, wow, the stress. Yes, we all need that. All right, so. Any more questions? If not, then I'm going to stop for a minute and then Atul's going to come, and Atul is talking about Pitta dosha today. So I think last time we did Vata dosha. Today we are doing Pitta dosha, and next time we'll do Kapha dosha and daily routine. that we have talked about how, you need a daily routine. I think I might have another. I'm not sure if I have another one. Oh, I do. I do have another. So let me take a 1-minute break and I'm going to start another presentation and then Atul's going to come. So 1-minute break.